So welcome to week 2. Your quiz is done. There is another study guide for week 3, your quiz 2. It's shorter. The lead made it, and I will be sending that to you. And I just got that one. All you have is your discussion question this week. It's all about safety. Now, you talk about HESIs, you talk about NCLEX. They're always going to put in there about safety and infection control, whether it's peds or med surge. It is usually a big place that they hit hard, just to let you know. So thinking about it, I've read some of the discussion questions already, and they were really good, that the explanations of them. Remember to cite. I saw that. It was one of those common themes, that how do you cite into and get that instead of 18 to 20?
The
It
question,
has
because
to do, yes.
oh sorry, I cited under my discussion, the initial discussion post, and you said I didn't cite.
You put references.
I put the oh when
References are not citation.
when you said cite, what do you like? What are you looking for?
Okay, so our author of our book is Leifer, right? So in parentheses, it'd be Leifer, comma, the date the book was copyrighted, 2023, and in parentheses. And you put that in the body of the paragraph where you're citing information. Okay? Now,
Oh,
if you look at your discussion question, I made comments and you'll see it written there. So if you used a different book or the CDC or wherever, you can put CDC, and if there's no date, you can't find one, comma, ND, no date, with parentheses around it. So there's many ways to do it. So if you're confused, you need help, send me a message. I'll help you. I'll show you how to cite. Okay, it's not a problem.
so it's not the name of
So,
the book, but
so
the
Every time you do any APA work, this is the body of the paragraph. Where you found that information has to be shown. It gives
oh,
credit to the author.
I could have
So,
sworn I put that though.
Tikia, I'll go back and look just to be
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
You're questioning, I'll go back and let me write it down on my list of to do, and I will go back and I will look, because
Okay.
maybe with reading how many that I read, about 50 of them this past week, maybe
Hmm.
I missed it, or blanked out. I mean, I'm not perfect. Try to be good, but I'm not perfect.
Okay.
All right, so that's discussion questions. Again, anybody needs help, just let me know. At 6:30 tonight, I'm doing a dosage calc review. Anybody who can come to it. I will show you how to do dosage calc very easy. I only use 3 formulas. I do not use ratio proportion, where you put the numbers in and cross them out. I think the more you add in and cross out, that's where the errors come. And I just don't understand it. But I'm going to show you, even if you use that, what numbers do you pull out and why? Okay, so I can help you even do your type. And I've been told that by those students who do ratio proportion. So if you need any extra help, you don't want to lose any 2 points for each question in your exams, I'm going to show you how easily to get it done. Okay, I did send you recordings, I did send you worksheets, and we're going to be going over those in that review tonight. I will record it and I will send it to you too. Okay, so you'll have it either way. Anyone who wants a one-to-one on dosage calc before exam, send me a message and I will make a time for you. Okay, so that is this week. I just about to post the exam review times next week, and they're on Wednesday at 6. You don't have to write this down. I will send you an announcement. And it will be, I'm doing mine on Thursday at 4. And then there's one by Professor Luminoso at Saturday at 10 a.m. So they're good times of the day and afternoons. Again, if you can't attend one of them, I will send you the recordings. I highly suggest you at least go to one. 2 is even better, because you get 2 views on the same subject matter. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and start with our PowerPoint. I heard some discussion about different PowerPoints and afraid that the information wasn't the correct and up to date and maybe another edition. I highly tell you that this is a brand new PowerPoint that are being formulated by Professor Stiles. She is going through everything and making new ones. She's the one that's making quizzes, and she's also putting together your study guides for quizzes. Everything we can do to try to help you, okay? So if you have any concerns at all, I don't mind. It keeps me on my toes and it makes sure that you get what you need, okay? Okay, let's go into, we're now into the preschooler. So preschooler, ages 3 up to school age, which is about 6 years old, okay? So they should double that 1-year-old weight by 5 years. We know we quadruple it at the birth weight by 2.5 years. So they're still growing really slowly. Toddlers, preschoolers, school age. It is slower and steady, okay? 3-year-old is 4 times the birth weight. And they say 2.5. All right, 3 years is fine, good too. They get taller, they're not as pudgy, they get more muscle control, they're less clumsy. You know, you can see the differences. And whereas they used to use both hands to do stuff, all of a sudden you're going to see my grandson did everything with both hands. And all of a sudden he writes with his left hand. And he is now officially a lefty. We didn't know what he was going to be up till he went to preschool and they found it out. So in a lot of these PowerPoints, we're giving you now something called a critical thinking discussion. I think this is a great thing. I'm going to show you that if you go to the notes pages underneath, it tells you what to think about, okay? So as a physician, at a physician's visit to treat a cut knee, the mother of a strong-willed 4-year-old girl says her daughter's defiance and insistence on getting her own way are wearing her down. In addition, the need for constant watchfulness to prevent the high energy child from injuring herself, other children, or household objects adds to the parenting challenge. She says she envies a neighbor who boasts that her child is cooperative, plays quietly with friends, and cleans up toys. The mother asks, what is she doing wrong? And how can she get her daughter to be more like the neighbor's child? Well, we know no two kids are the same, whether they're your children or the neighbor's kid, right? You have some kids that are always out willing to help, and you have those who are tearing things up and you got to watch them all the time. You know, I was just with my niece down in Mexico for a wedding. I went for my daughter's wedding in last month, and this she has 3 children. She has an older one who's 10, and then she has a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. Now that 3-year-old was into everything. That kid didn't stop, and the other 2 kids are perfect angels. And even the older kid, perfect, wonderful 10-year-old, always willing to help. So you can't say any difference between children. You can't do that. Now, we know that children that are 4 years old are into everything, right? They want to show that they can do things and they get frustrated when you don't listen, right? So one of the things is if they're doing things wrong, that's the time where we might use a timeout, right? And it's 1 minute per age. So a 4-year-old might get a 4-minute timeout. And remember to always explain why they're on timeout and when this clock will start and why they're there, okay? So that's part of, having this a toddler or a preschooler in this case. So Piaget. So I told you there are a lot of questions regarding theorists coming up on your first exam, okay? So understanding it is important. Now I read your discussion posts and I was really pleased with them. When we talk about Piaget, we have two different areas between preschool. As you can see here, it's the preconceptual and it's the intuitive. Now, this just means that they're starting to learn something. Like they'll say that a truck has wheels and it rolls. Now they're going to be rolling them or rolling them down a ramp or doing different things, making more fun with it. That magical lets me make things work. That's still a part of what they do. So they keep building upon something they saw. They have to see it. It's concrete. They see it. They say, oh, okay, let me try it. And then they go and work with that and develop it further. Of course, egocentric, yes, they still are. And they still, just like that 4-year-old who wants her own way, well, that's absolutely normal. Okay. This animism is a belief that inanimate objects have human feelings. They think that they have a broom that they ride around as a horsey. They'll pet it like it's a real thing. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bang you. You'll hear things, or they're teddy bears or dolls. They are not real, but they treat them as real feelings. Okay. And this artificialism has the thing about, like, if a child sees it's windy outside, they think that, somebody's blowing hard. Or I've heard that when thunder comes around with lightning, God's bowling. When I was a kid, right? There's all different things. And I'm sure you all could give me something about that. Now, the intuitive thought starts about understanding about, they start to use things like symbols that represent words. It's not just, they have their own words for things. And they make them into what they want them to be. For instance, you have a little kid who wants to be an airplane, right? So what is an airplane? They have wings. They put the arms out and they run around the room, right? Or again, they might find, a stick and they like their sword, like they're Star Wars heroes, right? This is all about things, making, their mind, it's imagination. And we want these children to be imagination, right? And they also these children, understand today. They really don't know how to express yesterday, or they don't know how to express tomorrow. It's the present time is what they know about. They don't know how to say we're going to the circus. Well, in a month we are, or on your birthday we are. They don't get that quite yet. Culture affects children and adults of all age, right? We know that culture makes a child who they are. It influences the way that they think about things, about the way that they do things or want to do things. Okay. And we know that if they're older kids in the house, they're going to want to be good like them if they're good. They want to get that praise that they're seeing that the other children in the house are getting. Now, their language, it's really starting to develop more. You're at 3 years old now. We know that there are some things that can happen that can make those thoughts, that language, be really delayed. And it could be just genetics. All right. Many times they don't speak, always think about hearing. Okay. Just because a child does not speak, do not think there's a delay, some mental condition. It could be as simple as they've had frequent ear infections, they don't hear. And if they don't hear, they can't learn. And many children don't want to say they can't hear. They just rather be in their own little worlds, right? It's all about egocentric. It's all about me and mine. And I just want to play sometimes, usually by themselves. We know that psychologically there are children that can have problems. We know that it could be something like ADHD. And young children can have that attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. They just can't pay attention to one thing at one time. So if they can't pay attention to that, they're not going to learn or hear and try to mimic what they're hearing. Okay. We know autistic children, their language is very small. And sometimes it's just a grunt, it's not words. So it depends on their level of autism, because there's mild to, very autistic. And I've seen all different levels. And remember, sometimes there's ADHD with a high functioning level of maybe autism. And that's something that I've seen a lot. Okay. Now, we know if you get an infection on the brain, it can affect your brain and it could affect memory or the speech center. It's absolutely one of the things that can cause language development. If a mother uses drugs or had used drugs, again, during the formation of the brain, it could cause some delays. There are children who have strokes at birth and their speech center and they can't speak. I had a good girlfriend whose daughter was like that and has to work with a pad to express her needs all the time. Poverty is a big thing with language development. Again, nutrition, nutrition, nutrition. If you have a child that's not getting proper nutrition, you're not putting that fuel in the tank. And if you don't put fuel in the tank, it's not going to go the way it should, right? If you don't do proper maintenance, it's not going to work the way it should. Well, the human body is the same thing too. If you don't give it nutrition, you're going to see delays in many different areas, and one of them could be their speech or even understanding what you're trying to say. The brain's not working the way it should. Now, bedtime can be a really horrible time for some parents. Some kids do not want to go to bed. You have to lay down with them, you have to fall asleep with them, and you try to sneak out. And, I've seen it all. I've had children myself, and I've had grandchildren. And what I have found out as the mistakes I did with my kids, I didn't do for my grandchild. So at bedtime, right before everything's quiet, there's no big crazy stuff, screaming, yelling going on. Maybe watch a little video, a little movie, read a book, look at pictures, and have a routine, a ritual. So that child knows that no, you can't have another glass of water. No, you've already gone to bathroom. No, daddy's already kissed you 3 times. No, it's time to go to bed. And let me say good night, night. I'll see you in the morning. And sometimes it's the reward of, and in the morning, if you are, listen to me well, that maybe there'll be a surprise. And it could be as simple as a sticker, a star. I mean, little things like that on preschoolers make a big, big deal. Now, social development, this is all about play. You know, Kids, what do? They wake up and they go right to the toys and play, right? This is what they do, what they like to do. It is something that's familiar. They know it's not going to hurt them, and they know that they're going to use their imaginations. Well, you need to know the types of play. Now, parallel play is toddlers, always. They play next to each other, but they don't play with each other's toys. They don't interact. They're just playing. So they're both alone, solitary, but they're next to each other. So that could be like in daycare. They're playing their own things. Well, then you have associative play. And that's when you have 2 or more children all playing with the same toys, but there's no goal. They don't create anything. Okay. It's not like playing checkers, somebody wins. No, this is just they all sit there and make their own things and they all look at each other, but there's not like an end to it. Now, cooperative play is again 2 or more children together, but there's a goal. So if they're playing with those Legos, maybe together they'll make a house or a castle or go to the beach. They might sit there and make a sand castle there or play checkers. Somebody wins or play that pop-up sorry game that I just absolutely love to play with my grandson. And there is somebody who wins it, okay? When they're in the preschool area, now they should be helping a little bit. As simple as putting their clothes in the dirty hamper when they're dirty, putting their dishes in the sink, help mommy pick up. All of those things they should be able to do, and they should be doing that. Gives them a sense of responsibility, and they do need that because you're going to praise them when they do it good, right? So the sometimes children, they preschoolers, they get attached. And I remember Christian went to school first time, as he was 2.5, I think, almost 3. So he was right there at that preschool area. But it wasn't, no, he was 3 because he couldn't get to school till September. So 3.5. And he went to this daycare because, of course, mommy works, daddy works, and, I work too. So they put him in daycare, and we heard that Christian had this one toy that he wouldn't share with anybody. It was his. Now, it's the daycare's toy, right? But when he went to daycare, he wanted it and he was angry if anybody else tried to get it. So it got to the point where they had to put it away so it wasn't there for anybody. So absolutely normal for this age of children. Doesn't mean that you have to allow them. It just means that they're going to be angry. And they're always afraid of getting hurt, losing all different things, fingers and hands and heads and whatever. It's just part of their understanding. So here we are, a critical thinking discussion question again. So a father wants to send his son to a morning play group twice a week. The parent is concerned that the child will not get enough attention because he is quiet and reserved. What suggestions can the nurse provide for the parent to stimulate the boy's confidence and language skills? Well, what do you think we should do getting a kid into a daycare? What are important things? Anybody?
You can
Um,
introduce the child to the other children.
Okay. What else?
teach them safety, like stranger danger.
Okay.
Just child being around other children. It makes that better also.
Okay. And whenever you do daycare, always making sure that daycare is of quality. Look at those Google comments, right? To see what's going on. And then always ask the child every day what's going on. What did they do? All right. And they're also saying that with children, it's not just all the daycare, a play group to get their language skills, etc., right? It's also you as a parent sitting and reading or watching a movie and talking about it and seeing how they understand, and that's comprehension. So there's so many things we can do here. So all we can do is suggest to parents, right? And they'll look to you as a nurse for these questions. So the physical, mental, emotional, and social development. Now the 4-year-old. Now the 4-year-old's more aggressive. They're more confident with themselves. They can do more. They're more agile. They can use scissors now. They give them those little round scissors in preschool, right? And they now have been taught how to use them. They should be able to tie their shoelaces. But today everything's Velcro straps. Did you ever notice that? When I was a kid, I had to learn how to do my shoelaces. They didn't know what Velcro straps were. So today, parents, this is what they put them in, those little straps there. Their vocabulary, look how many words now. 1,500. They're learning, learning, learning. They are interested in taking things and making it into something. I took a case, it was actually an old case of beer box that we had gotten when we got some groceries. And we used that box, put paper on it, made it into a car, put holes in it where the headlights were, and that was Christian's Halloween costume. And he was the proudest of that thing of any other costume he's ever had because he made it. So he's interested in those raw materials, right? He made it into something really neat. And then he colored it and scribbled it and whatever he did on it. And to this day, he still remembers that, Halloween costume he made. They're really starting to talk about death. And it's like, why are you talking about death so much? Where did you learn this? Where did it come from? Right? Well, what you need to do is, especially if somebody dies and you're talking about it, Christian's grandfather died at an early age, and he had questions about it. The thing is, let him ask you questions and answer them in a manner they can understand it without them getting scared of what you're saying, okay? They need to understand because other people are going to die in their lives, and it's part of life. I mean, I wish it wasn't, but that's the way it is. Now we're getting to the 5-year-old. Well, the 5-year-old's doing more and more and more for himself now. They can dress themselves, they can bathe themselves. And I'm telling you, the amount of questions that come out are quite amazing. And a lot of them, you're like, oh, wow, how does it even know that to ask a question? So giving them answers again in a developmental way that they understand it, okay? Don't talk so over them that they don't get it. They can ride at least a tricycle by now, if not a bike with training wheels, or maybe even without, depending on the kids. I've seen 3-year-olds on bikes without training wheels, and then I've seen other kids at 6 that have still the tricycle. So it all depends. That motor on some children, some take longer, some are not as coordinated, right? They have more understanding about computers, computer games than I will ever have. I hand Christian my iPhone, and that kid knows how to surf the web, surf YouTube. He's going to be a YouTuber when he grows up. When something goes wrong, he knows how to fix it. I was on TV. He wanted to change my Netflix, the little avatar. He wanted a different name on it. He knew how to do it. I don't know how to do these things. These kids are getting smarter and they start and understand, and they like that. They like to understand things. So there are limits to behaviors. There's so far they can push you that you have to say, okay, this is where we can't do that. You need to stop that. What you're doing is not proper, and why. Again, that why they want to know. They are learning. And then they have to learn, that self-control, whether it is when he goes to school with all the other children, whether it's sharing or sitting there waiting for other children to be done. All of these things are part of your self-control. Again, 1 minute per age per timeouts, right? And have them sit there until the time is up. There is something called reward and punishment, okay? It's about Kohlberg. He's at this age, it's reward and punishment. Now, you don't bribe the kids. If you do that, I'll give you a candy. It's after they do something really good, you say, you've been really good today. Let me give you an ice cream bar tonight for dinner. Oh, you ate all your dinner, so here's a popsicle. These things, it really encouraged that positive behavior, okay? And one thing kids like, I don't care what age you are, it is that consistency, being the same, not trying to do different things at different times. It's the same thing, and it really helps them understand it a lot easier. Now, thumb sucking is something kids do. Well, what happens when you're an infant? How do you self-soothe? With a pacifier, right? Or Piaget says they find their finger, oh, put it in his mouth, and they go, oh, I like that. So they continue doing this. They know how to self-soothe. Well, my daughter had this finger backwards, and she did that till she was at least 5 years old. What they do say is it's okay for them to self-soothe, right? Because that's what children need to do, how to take care of themselves, calm themselves down. But if the permanent teeth are coming in and there's a thumb still in there, or the finger, those teeth will be out of alignment. So our goal is to stop it before them, all right? Now, knowing times of stress, these children will go back to sucking their thumb because, again, this is how they know that they're taking care of their stress. They're calming themselves down, okay? So enuresis, another name for bedwetting. Well, it's more common in boys than girls. And there's different types of bedwetting. Primary is they wet all the time. They've never been dry overnight. And then you have what we call secondary. Now, this kid has been in a bed, hasn't wet for, 6, 8 months, a year, or whatever, and all of a sudden they wet their bed. Well, that secondary, if it continues, we know there could be something else going on. I mean, the number one I think of as a problem why they're bedwetting is a urinary tract infection. Very common in children. The most common GU complaint of children is that. So, but remember, there are other things that make them urinate, which is that diabetes mellitus. Remember, you drink a lot, you eat a lot, you urinate a lot, right? So it's part of that organic cause. Diabetes insipidus is they drink a lot and urinate a lot. Again, it's a pituitary problem. We'll go into these things. They could have had a seizure, and in seizures, they are incontinent. Could be some sort of obstructive problem with their GU system or an abnormality, and then their sleep disorders. Kids, panic attacks. They do have panic attacks at night. My second grandson had really bad panic attacks, and he would start screaming and yelling in the middle of the night, or get up and walk around just crying and looking for who knew what. But it's very real. So, how do we treat enuresis? Well, number one, we got to find out what's going on. Have they ever been dry? Okay, how long have they been dry? And now, how long have they been urinating? How frequently are they doing it, right? And then let's look at normal things during the day. How many times do they urinate? Do they sit there? A boy, when he urinates, is it a great stream? And because boys are more than girls, but is the stream good? Is it painful? And then we always will look at, did they have something to drink before they went to bed? And that's usually the biggest cause, is they do drink before they go to bed. And sometimes it's history, and sometimes something's going on in the family. Maybe grandma died, maybe daddy moved out, maybe they had to move to a different state away from a friend they had. Who knows? Stress is real for that child. There are medications that we can give, but that's the last thing. We'll rule out everything else first, and we'll also, if the kid is that 3, 4-year-old child, we're going to look at how was that chore of training them for to be, potty trained, right? So limit the liquids, as I said. And of course, always they go to bed, they brush their teeth, they should urinate, sit on the potty, do what they need to do before they go to bed, and then I'll put them to bed. And then that should help. Now, treatments, well, if it gets to the point where nothing is helping, you might put them in counseling because it could be stress. This is the only way they're handling it. Hypnosis, maybe behavior modification, pharmacology, and then bladder training, having them hold it another minute after they say they got to go pee, right? That could help also. My daughter was born with a tiny bladder. This girl, don't go on a road trip with her. Every hour she has to stop. And she had it checked out. And the GU lady, that actually was GYN that she went through, said, "You've just got a really small bladder. There's really nothing we can do about it." So I don't like taking road trips with my daughter. Again, another critical thinking discussion. A foster parent takes care of a 5-year-old who is required to visit her biological mother every weekend. The child wets the bed for 1 or 2 nights when she returns to the foster home and then stays dry until after the next weekend. The foster mother calls the clinic and asks the nurse how she should handle the bedwetting. What counseling would you provide? According to all the information I just gave you, what do you think happened? And what would you counsel that foster parent? She went to her biological mother. How do you think that felt?
With a change in her environment.
It could be stress, right? Maybe she's in foster care. There's a reason why she's not with a biological mother, right? Or there was a reason that she's trying to correct. But still, this is different routine. Again, different routine, a different way. The mother does it and the foster parent does it. And they really get stressed out when they're not on that same routine, right? So bedwetting was distress. They can find out if there was any issues with the parents, because you always worry about the child's safety. I mean, in pediatrics, your number one thing is to keep your children safe. And if you ever think of things like abuse, these are things that you as a professional need to make sure that you do tell somebody about, okay? Also teaching, in bedwetting, maybe this kid needs to be putting on some sort of, pull up or something during that time until she relaxes. If it's something that just happens once, okay. But another thing I would do is sit and talk with the girl. Why do you think you had to, you wet the bed? Did going to your mom, was that upsetting to you? And a 5-year-old will sit and talk to you, and they are so honest. It's probably the reason why I like children and love pediatrics so much. Children are honest, and when you ask them things, they will answer you. So in preschool, we get those preschool programs, and they are great. They again organized things that are going on, and all the children are doing the same thing. They have to pay attention, right? They have to sit for a period of time. They have to cooperate, and they have to realize they're not the only one there. It is a group of children. So worrying about the other children getting their turn, right? It does help a kid, especially when they see that they know the numbers, and they raise their hand and they did it first. That gives them such pride and self-esteem, right? Now, preschoolers should take a bath. They don't have to wash their hair all the time. They can do it twice a week, maximum. Some of them once a week, depending on, again, your culture. But they should take a daily bath because they sweat, they're dirty. The clothes should be loose, but not over loose. And so that they can move and jump and run and do all the crazy things they do. Again, and they can wash them easy. Preschoolers can go through, if they're home, 2, 3 sets of clothes a day, right? Their food down the front, outside, playing and whatever, getting dirty. I mean, this is playing. This is what they need to do. They need to explore their environments. And again, good shoes that protect their feet. Here we are, some accident prevention. Sounds familiar to your discussion question? So accidents are a major threat to preschoolers. These kids are now mobile. These kids are out playing. They're playing in their driveways, their front yards, near the street. Car safety, number one. I have seen in my career 3 kids ran over by a car about the preschooler age. And one was a mother, one was an aunt, and one was the next door neighbor. Now, one kid, nothing happened. And it was like this miracle. And I had one kid who really ill and one kid who didn't make it. So all different levels of injury can happen there. So being safe around cars and teaching these kids about playing around cars, very important, because they have a little bit more autonomy. They want to get up, they want to go out, and they want to play, and have fun. And the ball goes out into the street, they're going for it, aren't they? So they need to be taught all about these dangers. And parents still need to be aware and supervise them. It's not as close as the toddlers, but still, they need really good supervision. Now, in this age, it's all magical. It's a magical feeling, right? Imaginary playmates are so common. I can tell you that Christian sits there playing with his toys because he doesn't have a sister or brother younger. And there's no other younger kid around me when he's with me. And he'll sit there with his toys, and all of a sudden he's talking to himself, and things are flying in the air, and he's changing things and giving something over here. And it's just absolutely the best thing. And it is a relief from that loneliness. He's got somebody there to play with, right? And it doesn't have to be Nana all the time, because if he could, I'd be playing with him 24 hours a day. Now, growth and development, preschoolers. So we know that the guidance is going to be changing, the parental guidance. We know that preschoolers want to be up and out in movement. That's okay, but they need to know, what are the rules of being out, and what they need to protect themselves from. The timeouts is something that can be given, again, 1 year per age of the child. And then we get into going into a hospital. Now, children that are young don't understand, and they think that if they're stuck by something, they're going to bleed out and they are going to die. And they're really scared. So again, a lot of things happen. Of course, we as nurses get down on their level, developmental level, speak to them, open up communication. I'll start talking about, so tell me, are you in school? What do you like? Can you color? What's your favorite color? Do you have a teacher? Do you have a brother, sister? Talk, get on their level. And then start talking about what we need to do, and be honest with these children if it's going to hurt, or if it's just going to have touch and no pain. The hardest thing, I think, is separation anxiety. Now, parents can't stay in the hospital all the time, can they? They have to go home. They have other siblings. It could be even their mother and father at home they got to take care of, or they have to go to work. So there's a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of times parents can't be there. So they go through these stages of protest, despair, detachment, and regression. And this is real. What happens when mom has to go home? The kid starts screaming and yelling, right? The kid's upset, wants mommy. And then they get to the point where they sit in the corner and regress, start sucking their finger. And they're like, okay, well, mommy's not here. They come into the room, they don't even pay them attention. So you're going to have a discussion question on this. You'll get into it more. And we know with separation anxiety, there is that regression where they learn how to comfort themselves. And that is, they go backwards. Sometimes you'll even see a potty trained child need a diaper because they're so stressed. So observing a kid and doing an assessment on a preschooler. So number one, what is a child's approach to play? Children, what they like to play. Usually, as I said, these are the associative, right? These are children who playing together, but sometimes with not a goal in the end. I think the preschooler or the 6-year-olds might play a game that there is a winner, be a cooperative play, but usually they love to play, they like to learn, they like to be magical. Some kids don't like to go into a group, they're shy. I heard my little Christian say, no, I'm shy, I don't want to ask. And at other times, he's the center of, everything that's going on. It's just, these children understanding who they are. Some kids like to be loud and noisy, and some kids just like more quiet, sitting there, reading a book, playing with blocks, and without all of that stuff. Sometimes they will talk to their playmates or imaginary ones, sometimes not. And we know attention span, as I said, is really small. And to have a kid sit in a chair during preschool is actually pretty hard. But I don't know how the teachers do it, but they do get it done. Now, this Denver developmental exam, there is a YouTube connection to it. Remember, this looks at the developmental level of your child and doesn't tell you an IQ. It just tells you what type of therapies this kid will need, okay? So developmental screening tool is not an IQ. It only has to do with maybe what you need. Maybe this kid needs speech. Maybe this kid needs physical therapy. So you can watch that at your house. So one parent wants to send her child to a preschool program for 3 mornings a week. Another parent who has a developmentally disabled child also wants to have her child experience the benefits of a group care setting for part of a week. How should each parent evaluate potential programs to determine suitability for the child? And what special features should the parent of the developmentally disabled child look for? Can you send all kids to the same daycare? Would it benefit them to go to the same daycare? No. We know that there are different daycares. When I was working out of Cutler Bay in pediatrics, I would go and I do the clinicals. And they have what we call a prescribed pediatric extended care. It's called a PPAC. And the PPAC is for those children who have special needs. And it could be a child that has from reflux as an infant all the way to a child with cerebral palsy, nonverbal, who can't walk, and everything in between. It could be a child with attention deficit, could be a child with Down syndrome. There's all different reasons why the children go to that daycare. It was a place I love, and I visit every now and then because I miss the kids. Anyway, developmentally disabled children need to look for that program that's accredited, needs to be accredited, that they know that they're getting proper speech, physical, occupational therapy, that they're getting all the needs that they do need. To go there to play, just to feed them, change them, is not benefiting that child at all. Now, a parent with a child who, well, a normal child, not developmentally delayed, needs a daycare that stimulates them, that teaches them things. And the developmental one is takes what they got and enhance it and improve it. Okay. So school age child, school age, ages 6 to 12. These are children who are not in that magical thinking anymore. They're into reality, the facts. They want to know, what they really have. They can do like role playing, about fantasy, but they understand that life is what life is. Okay. School age children love same-sex peers as their friends. This is just part of what Freud says. And this is also what Erickson says about same-sex friends. We know that they're pleasers. We know that they are judged by how well they perform, whether it is if they're out on the field playing soccer, the kids who run the fastest, kick the ball the hardest, those kids will be praised. And that's what kids want. What about the child who's good at spelling or at math? They will be judged by that, but also be praised. Okay. So that's that self-esteem. Now, one of the things Erickson says in school age is a sense of industry. And that word, I don't even know how to relate it to anything else to you. But what it means is a school age child has at least one thing that they're really good at, and they get praised for it. And another way to look at that, and then of course, there's the inferiority part where they can't do everything well, and that's totally what Erickson. But the sense of industry also, as a nurse, if you have a child, school age kid in a hospital, and they're there for an extended period of time, you need to keep them stimulated. So you would give them something to do, but something that they'd be able to accomplish. You don't want to ever give them something that's too much. For instance, maybe you gave them a 250-word puzzle, not a 1,000-word puzzle to do. The 1,000-word puzzle, they're not going to be able to put that together. and it depends on the prints, et cetera, et cetera. But you want to allow them to have something that you know with some effort they can do. And then they feel a sense of accomplishment, and then they're going to get the praise for doing it, okay? They are learning everything. They're learning reading, writing, understanding. They are pleasers for sure. And it's a hard time of growing because now they're starting to learn other cultures, other people, because they're best friends. Again, mothers, fathers are still very close in their growth and development and watching over them. They're breaking away a little bit because of these friends. So as I said, Erickson is a stage of industry. What do I do well? Freud, all about same-sex peers, friends, making friends. Piaget is starting to understand that even if you take things and mix up the way that they're shaped on the table, they're still the same number of pieces. Or if you take a tall glass of milk and put it in a short, squat glass, it looks less, but the volume, they know it's the same. That is part of what they are understanding, okay? It's called conservation. It's what they understand. It doesn't depend on the way things are lined up or not. It's still the same number of pieces, or that squat glass goes into the tall glass. The younger kid will take the tall glass. They think it's more, but the school-age child knows there's no difference. Again, it's still stair step in the way they're growing. It's going to be a little bit of weight, a little bit of height. But remember, they're going 6 years here from age 6 to 12. So all in all, it's a lot of weight and gain, but it is, they're gaining weight and they're increasing in their height. Their brain is almost adult size. So they're learning and learning. Their coordination is really good. They're taking tap and ballet and playing soccer and baseball, and they're doing really well. Their baby teeth start to come out at age 6, and their permanent teeth start coming in. It's the age of all I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth, because their teeth are coming out. Their GI tract, whereas remember, as infants, we don't give them any food till they're 6 months old because the GI tract can't handle it. You'll just see it out in the stool. Well, school-age children can do a lot better with food and they can hold it better. And they don't have to eat every 4 hours like we do, or 3 hours with infants or even toddlers. So they have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're doing good. They're not gaining as much weight, so they don't need as much calories. And their heart is growing. And now, as an infant, your heart takes up the chest. And as they get to school age, it's the chest with the heart inside, smaller, this part of it. Now, one of the things you have to remember with school age children, some of these kids look old, older than what they are. I have a grandson who's age 9. This kid is 5'4" and 145 pounds. He's age 9. You want to talk to him like a teenager, and you have to realize, no, he's not a teenager. You have to still talk to him on the level that he understands. You can't treat him as an adult. He's not there yet. Okay? So one of the things you need to think about when you are a nurse looking at kids, because some kids do look a lot older and they're not. Their gender identity, we know that their sex roles are all developed by parents. We know that, it starts to get a little bit into, girls and boys and same-sex peers. And we know that in school, we think boys are going to be more rowdy than girls. Well, what about me? I grew up with 6 brothers. I was just like another boy, wasn't I? So sometimes you've got to remember those sort of things. Yes, I was a girl. I had long hair. I had braids. I had ribbons and all that. But I was still that rowdy. kid out running around faster than the boys, but that is, again, figuring out your identity as you grow up. So school tasks, we know that anything a kid does, you need to set up realistic goals, right? Because industry, if you can't meet the goals, they're going to be frustrated. And they're going to have a frustrated child who shuts down, and you're not going to be able to teach them. So always set a realistic goal. You can always go up another step once they reach one, right? Easier that way than put that goal up there too high. If something's going on at school and they're not in school a lot, they're tardy, you see them in the corner, something's stressed out, this is a child that needs to talk to someone. And as a nurse, you might see that as a school nurse, going to see you and saying, so what's going on at home, finding out what's happening, because maybe there's nobody else they can talk to, right? Maybe there is problems with mom and dad, something in the household. And one of the things that as parents, it's easy for us to do their homework. It's harder to wait for them to get it finished. We have to let them do their homework. We need to have them have a certain spot that they do it, and they need to know, when you as a parent want it done. Come home from school, change your clothes, have a snack, and do your homework. When you're done, you can go out, ride your bike, right? Or play your video game, which would be today. So sexuality. Well, school age children are pretty smart today. They are hearing things from other children, or they're riding the bus with older kids, they're hearing stuff, or, there's an older kid in the house. So there are some words that you might hear. Now, if I don't understand the word, I'm going to stop. Say, what does that mean? And let me know what is happening, because I don't know all these words. Now, children are the same way. They don't really understand those things either, okay? But we know that there are these slang things that are out there. And the children also need to know what's appropriate and what's not. Now you're a 6-year-old. These are the get up and go kids. They're on, motion from morning to night. They like to play with something, leave it, and go to the next. Many times I'm like, Christian, put the Legos away. You're painting now. Okay, put those away. You want to play the video game? Those have to be put away. And it's just part of what they do, and that's normal. And as long as you keep saying the same thing over and over again, they get it a little bit. They might need a little push, but they'll start to remember those things. Their vocabulary is 2,500. And some of the words that come out, I'm like, how do you know these words? Between school, between reading, and other kids. And then they listen to us more than you think. There's a lot of words that they're using. They still need a lot of sleep, 11 to 13 hours. And if they don't, they will be crankier, or, they might fall asleep in school sometimes. Boys and girls play together, but again, they prefer same sex, okay? They need time to adjust to school and what's its needs, and getting homework done, and what uniform to wear. They really need time to figure this out. Children do get stressed, and parents need to be aware of it. And if you're a school nurse, you need to be seeing that kid that used to be this bouncy kid and running around. I know Christian is loved by security guards, loved by the teachers, loved by everybody. And Christian, now if all of a sudden this kid wasn't bouncy and smiley, I know somebody would come to me, because that's his normal, affect. So these are things that parents also need to be looked at. Now, in daycare, in toddlers, they swap spit, right? That's how they get all of their diseases, because they're always in the mouth exploring the world. Now, when you get to be a 6-year-old, telling them how to blow their nose, wash their hands, because they can have mucus on them and they touch a pencil or this or that, the desk, and it goes from kid to kid to kid. Again, they're still exposed, but they've been exposed so much earlier. They do have a lot of immune against that, okay? Now, immunizations are always important, making sure that they got that proper on board, what they need to help them. 7-year-olds, now they're starting to set standards for themselves. They want to get all A's in school, or they want to run the fastest, or they want to write the neatest, whatever their goal is. Remember, all kids are different. They have a sense of humor now. They don't want you in there when they're taking their bath or their shower. They're more modest. Or they're going in the bathroom, they close and lock the door. I mean, that's part of that being modest. They do need times where they sit down and relax and what we say a rest period. Absolutely. They know the seasons, they know the concepts of math. I was absolutely was remarkable about 3 years ago, even that long ago, watching YouTube videos, Christian figured out 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, 8 plus 8 is 16, 16 plus 16 is 32, 32 plus 32 is 64, 64 and 64 is 128, 128 and 128 is 256, and he knew that. He came up to me and told me that, and I went, "Where did you learn that?" And it was from that repetition on a YouTube channel about math. So they're understanding math, that subtraction, addition, they're really starting to get those things, or percentages of. It's amazing what they're studying just in first grade at 6 years old. Again, they love play. Again, they are steadier, their movements are good, and they do want to be independent. They want to do things themselves. But again, 7-year-olds still need a reminder, pick up, get there, and do this, right? 8-year-olds want to do everything for themselves. They can play alone by themselves, extremely creative, whether it's sitting there coloring, whether it's sitting there building Legos, whatever it is, they like to do it. They love to be in groups and they like to win, right? Competitive sports. Those children now can go out into the public with other friends and family, and they just act so much better. You don't have to keep telling them, you don't do this and don't do that and come here and they're not all over the place as they are. Hero worship, superheroes, right? Spider-Man, Iron Man is one of the ones now. They have some sort of hero. Again, their arms and hands are growing faster, their muscles are better. They love to argue. They want their word to be in their last. They need to have the last say. And how do you stop that? I mean, it's very difficult. They're just trying to express themselves. And they need to be taught, if you're angry, how do you do it? Go outside and scream at the top of your lungs, or go in your room. Don't be punching holes in walls, et cetera, because that could be of that unacceptable behavior. 9-year-olds are accepting more and more responsibility, and they want to do board games and watch TV with mom and dad. And these children are now completing tasks before starting another one. You can tell them how to do things a little better than what they're doing, and they're not going to be but no, I'm doing it like that. That's what they used to say. And now they're going to start, oh, okay, let me try that. Again, expressing it in a manner they understand. They worry a lot. They worry about things like money problems. They worry about time management, bedtimes. They worry about many things that we don't even think about. Hand and eye coordination is really good. That's why they play softball, basketball, baseball now, right? Soccer, football. They need about 10 hours of sleep. and their permanent teeth. Again, that stops at the end of school age where all of them will be in. And they love, again, those competitive sports, and they like to be good at it. Make sure, especially these children that are getting into sports, that they have the proper safety equipment, whether it's helmets, shoulder pads, knee pads, whatever it is. Make sure they're like their bike helmets, make sure they have what they need. And again, it's just for safety. So a shy, reserved 8-year-old child tends to isolate himself from other children, doesn't want to be part of the group. What type of interventions and guidance can the school nurse provide? What do you think? Anybody?
Just try to talk to them and see what the issue is, if they say anything.
Maybe bring them over to a group of kids and introduce them. And, maybe there's one kid who always is the helper, right? Always is there to help a kid. Say, here, this is Alex. This is Charlie. Let's see what you can do to have them play with you and be there as that safety person for a while until they get going, right?
I know for my daughter, they used to have her do the announcements. My daughter was real shy.
Wow,
They used to have her do the announcements every morning.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
School nurses are so important. It is a great job to have as a nurse. And again, especially if you have kids, because you're on the same schedules, which is the best part of it. And school nurses can make a big difference in children, especially if she really knows her kids.
Mhm.
So pre-adolescents. Pre-adolescents are those at about 10 years old. Again, some of these are starting into puberty, right? Because it starts about 2 years before the menses. So maybe they're starting to get more physically mature. Maybe little breast buds have started on them, right? And little curves, and they're not as, the fat deposits what they used to be. So girls are physically more mature than boys, believe it or not, at this time. I mean, boys can't do gymnastics, can they? And tap like girls do at this age. They just don't. Tap and ballet and those things. I mean, they hit balls and they run, or kick balls and run. They want to be independent. They like to do things in groups. They don't want to be alone anymore. So again, those same-sex fears. They're starting with this sexual curiosity, like why does she have those things, like those breast buds, right? They're starting to see these sort of things and start wondering what's happening. We know girls more poised than boys. They act a little quieter and more adult at times. They're always, I mean, to this day, you're going to use slang terms at my age for whatever reason. It's just part of human nature. They're starting to identify themselves with things that they can do, whether they're a boy or girl. Girls, they can cook, they can sew, they can play an instrument. Doesn't mean a boy can't do that though. It just means that sometimes you just get into that role that you think girls should be, right? And now they want, the best sneakers, the new Nikes that come out, and they want their hair done a certain way. Glasses important if they have them, bows, ribbons, barrettes, whatever. They want to look good, okay? And they're starting to know a lot more about numbers and math, etc. 11 and 12-year-olds, intense, observant, energetic, argumentative. I mean, they're getting almost to adolescence, right? Doesn't it sound like that right there? Again, why? They're starting at that, pre menstruation. It's part of that growing up at this time, and puberty. It's almost there. They say puberty is at the end of school age, which is at 12 years old. So they are, they know what they can do, what they can't do, and they're going to take a part of that. They want, as younger school age children, sit there and listen and do what they're supposed to. As they're getting older, they're getting into their own minds of what they want to do. So that's what that ability to concentrate comes about. They are really interested what's going on. They're going to see, I'm skinnier, I'm a size 2, and that's a size. They're bigger, they don't have the curves, or their hair is short, or the freckles, or they're going to see all of these bodies and differences there. They know why parents don't let them do things, but they're going to try their own way if they can. And they're not going to listen to mom and dad by the end of this. That constant, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. They're going to not pay attention to a lot of that. And again, still, school age children need chores. You come home, you want to go out Friday night to the Friday night basketball game, you need to dust and your homework needs to be done. And that was part of my chores for just Friday night. Of course, Saturday was a different story. I had a lot more, but chores are good. It teaches them responsibility. So health supervision. We know that usually children do get an examination before school. We know that those 12-year-olds are getting those Hep B and HPV vaccines if they haven't had them. So we know that they usually get there. Another thing we need to be aware of is vision and hearing, especially again when we're talking about inability to learn or language issues. The first thing now is seeing, can they see? And then again, can they hear? You might have missed it getting a little bit older, okay? And again, they love to be able to do well at school or be good at sports. Again, that's their industry. They want to do something well. Children that are school age children that are sick need to know why they're sick. And they need to know what they need to do and how long it's going to take for them to get better and how they're going to feel in a manner that's developmentally appropriate for that child, okay? Again, as I said, they need that time in that place, that one place to do their homework so they know that that's where their stuff is. They need to know where their school supplies are. It's one thing that I know that Christian's mom is teaching him. He tends to leave his notebook here and pencils here and crayons, and she's not just going to go out and keep replacing them. She needs to know he needs responsibility for them, and make sure they come home when they're supposed to. Also, some parents are giving children allowances, or some parents say, if you do what you're supposed to do, then you could go to a movie, or we can go bowling, or, something else. Some people give money. It's a reward, an allowance of some sort. It doesn't have to be monetary. I know I couldn't afford it with my kids, so we used to do things together. Could be just go to the park or go to the beach, but that was their allowance. So the parents of a 7-year-old immunocompromised boy state they want to get a dog for their son. The parents tell the nurse that they have read some studies about the positive influence and benefits of pet ownership, but they want to know what risk may be involved. What information can the nurse provide the parents about some disease transmitted by dogs to humans and how the parents might protect the child from these? So, what do they transmit? Well, if number one, if you're immunosuppressed, these animals, most of them have hair, and that hair carries dirt and dust and germs, right? So they can get sick just from them. And they say things like cellulitis. What about scratching and biting? I mean, the dog's mouth is dirty and they just nip for fun, right? But it could create a problem there for it. They're talking about stomach problems. Rabies is a big one on children. of dogs that have not been properly immunized, right? And again, with all that being said, these children need to wash their hands. The dog needs to be, taken to the vet, get all the vaccines that they have to get, and the dog needs also to be washed frequently too in order to prevent it. Is it a good idea? Yes and no. It depends on what immunocompromise they have, and how that can affect them. And that would be a decision that that parent should talk to a physician about, the one who's working with that immunocompromised. And now the adolescents. I call this the time of the roller coaster. Hold on, because these are now adults who know what to do when they want to do it. So you have to hold on and hold them down, because this could be that time where they're obstinate and they want to be the adult now. So we know when adolescence starts is at age 13. 13 to 18, they're saying is adolescence. So at 12, they say is when puberty begins. So now we have all these hormones going on. We're also going to do that pre-adolescent growth spurt. 25% of their height is growing then. So they're growing quick and they have hormones going on. And now they're getting, breasts, and boys are getting hair in places that they never knew they had, and the voices are changing, and they're getting to learn about what's going on with their body. The biggest thing with adolescents is now they need to establish their identity. Well, what's an identity? Well, there are many things. What do I want to be when I grow up? Where do I want to go to school? It's also, do I like girls? Do I like boys? Do I like both? There's so many things with identity. Am I the sports person? Am I the band person? Am I the arts person? Or am I the smart, nerdy kid? I mean, who am I? My identity. So body image is part of that. Do I look good? Am I too fat, too skinny? Is my hair too curly, too many freckles? What? All of those things are so frustrating for an adolescent. This is a time where they're away from the family a lot. So they're into other families, other children, other families. They're starting to learn all about sexuality and intimacy and touching and kissing and all those things. An appropriate way to do that. And again, parents should be involved. But again, not all parents speak to children. So school nurses are great, for part of this. How to keep safe if their decision is to go have sex. And teenagers will. It's just part of what they do. And again, the career. What am I going to be? Now, again, they're going through this 25% growth spurt that's going on. So now they've been the smallest kid in the class, pudgy. All of a sudden they're tall and they're curvy, and now they have breasts and their hair's long, and they have to really adjust to all of this. You've got to give the adolescent privacy. So even as a nurse, knocking on the door before you enter, who knows what they're doing in there. And again, many of it's just normal things. They have to learn how to cope with all the other kids. And it's hard maintaining a status with whatever group they want to fit in. As parents, maintaining open communication is difficult. They just want as I say it, their buddies in them. They just want their peers. They just want to talk with them. They don't want to talk with mom and dad. And it becomes a difficult time. They have to learn how to conform to what society wants them to be. And it is a difficult thing. They've got to trial and error and make mistakes and then learn from them. So Erickson, intimacy, it's also identity, right? Piaget, abstract thinking. Abstract thinking, talk about an adolescent whose mother said, you can't go out with your friends on Friday because you didn't do this, or you got an F on your exam, or whatever. How many different stories is that child going to try to figure out to convince you that they can go out Friday and you're going to let them? They're going to take out the garbage, make their bed, do their homework, get a better grade on their exam. And that's abstract. Taking something they want, figuring out how to get there. And I think they can fight their way out of paper bags. They are so smart trying to get what they want. And then Freud is all about that, sexuality in the genital stage. So growth and development, physical, as I said, we start at that ages 10 to 13. That's that what we call about that pre-puberty ages, where all of a sudden you start with the puberty, and usually 2 years after the start, which would be the breast buds in girl or an enlargement of the testicles with boys, they go through their puberty. Okay, we know that girls go before boys. Okay, it's all about hormones. And then here's a great picture which shows you all the different things that happens. Their faces change, their muscles change, that little tummy pudge is going to go away. They just start getting longer, hair starts forming. All of these things are part of that. As I said, puberty varies. I said it's girls are before boys. And then usually children will have their growth spurt by 18 years old. Now, I had a son who was 5'7" at 18. He went and enlisted in the Army. Came back a year later, he was 6'4". I'm like, when did that happen? So again, as I'm saying, it doesn't have to happen earlier. It could happen later, as long as everything else is good. We know they gain weight because they're getting taller. They tend to be long legged and gawky. Can you imagine 5'7" and he was 147 pounds? He was just old enough to get into the Army. And he's 24 years later in the Army. He's a master sergeant, but the kid started out as this tiny little thing. And we know all about adolescence. It's the pimples, the oil, the acne, the hair, the oil is all part of them. So boys, they start with that hair, growing on their face, their chest, their armpits, and their pubic areas. As I said, shoulders are bigger, genitals are increasing. And the one thing that we forget with boys is do a testicular self-examination. I have met an 18-year-old boy who had testicular cancer. And when he came into the ER, his testicles are already huge. And he lived for 3 months and died. It had already metastasized. So just as women do breast exams, men need to do testicular self-exams. Girls, as I said, usually they say 6 months to 2 years before boys, but it's about 2 years. They start with menstruation, usually anywhere between 12 to 13. And then, of course, we start seeing the body changes there, right? And we know that there are things that can delay menstruation. You've heard, for instance, girls in sports, like gymnastics, really extreme, they don't get their menstruation till they're later on in life. It's just normal, just because of what they do. But a normal kid, normal girl, normal nutrition, no other problems, should be starting about 12 to 13. Now, Tanner is the one that describes how your body grows. And I just describe it as you start with nothing and you end up with something, right? That's what the pictures are. And there are 4 stages, and that's what you need to know. Stage 1 is they're there, and then it goes into, the testicles getting bigger, and then it starts out, with the hair, they get taller, all of these things. And again, the girl starts with breast buds, and then it goes into the hair, and it goes into, they're getting their menses, and then, of course, getting taller also. All part of Tanner stages of sexual maturity. And you'll see questions regarding that too. So psychosocial is always going to talk about things like identity, which is Erickson, right? How you evolve yourself with society. And we know that adolescents are all different. And again, it's cultural. and it also depends on the children that they're hanging around with, right? We know there's a sense of intimacy. We know that it's all about them feeling good, their sense of identity. What makes me feel good, I'm going to do. Whether it's painting a picture, whether it's playing an instrument, whether it is playing sports, whatever it is their identity. They're going to try, fail, try, do it. So it's a trying and testing, right? They can't do it. They'll figure out another way to try to get it done. They're going to be making decisions and they need to. They're going to figure out what they want to be as in their culture. What do they accept? And spiritually, do they believe in whatever the God's name is, or do they believe in nothing? You know, every child, adolescent will make up their own deal. Usually it's the family that influences, but you know, adolescents, they're going to adapt and be what they want to be. Again, we know that body image is huge. And a lot of times when they don't feel good about themselves, that's when these children are at risk for suicide, from depression, because their peers don't like them. They don't look good. They not smart enough. They're not agile enough. They're not. They don't feel good. And they can. Depression is a big thing. And some of it ends up in suicide. So a parent's mother complains to the nurse that her 14-year-old son has becoming increasingly lazy in the past couple of years. He lies around the house and sleeps all day Saturdays, and he complains of being tired a lot. How would the nurse explain that behavior? What do you think that is? After what I just said.
Adolescents stay up all night and sleep during the day, I guess.
No, they can, right?
Yeah.
Or they
Could be
they lost
depression.
friends. Depression, absolutely. Or they don't have friends, or they're confused. They don't know where they fit in. And sometimes instead of being, you know, always, you know, slammed down for being wrong, it's better just to pull away, right? That child needs somebody to talk to them. That child is at risk right there. So yes, very good. So peer relationships, as I said, are important. They make them feel like they belong. That's their group. That's their identity. And as I said, it's sports, it's the nerds, it's the art, it's the band group, whoever the group is. They feel like they belong. School is a great place for all of that going on there. And they, of course, as I said, there are all these cliques going on. Now, usually, again, they have a best friend. Most of the time, they are the same sex, okay? And they help them talk about their feelings, what's going on between each other. What has been said about these best friends as adolescents, that how they treat their friends is how they treat their peers, their spouse or partner of life later on in life. So if you have really good to your best friends, you're probably going to be a great partner of life. Piaget, we know that this is concrete. This is formal operations. This is when they can figure out, as I said, how to get out of a paper bag. If they want something, they're going to figure out what they want, okay? Now, nurses are going to be looking at what's wrong with them and help them deal with it. What if you have an adolescent who all of a sudden develops type 1 diabetes and now has to take insulin for life? They're able to sympathize, to empathize, you know, and to help them work with being different, because they can't go out and just eat ice cream every Saturday with the other kids because it can harm them having, you know, eating those things and giving more insulin and doing all the crazy things they try to do. Sexual behavior, we know that there's going to be, whether it's opposite sex, same sex, doesn't matter. They're going to be experimenting. Part of that we have to be careful about is things like unplanned pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. You know, and, you know, sexually transmitted diseases, you know, some of them we can treat and some of them are there for life. So again, as parents trying to speak with them, I'm telling you, I could never speak to my mother about anything like that. A school nurse would have been a better person for me, because if you don't talk about it, it's not happening. But today, I mean, me as a parent, I talked about everything, and it hopefully helped a little bit, not all, but helped a little. Sex education, nurses, sit there, let them know that they can talk with you. You're going to see as a nurse, if you have a child, adolescent, let's say they come into your doctor's office or into an urgent care and you're the nurse and they're having, let's say, frequent urinary tract infections. And, you think it probably could be because of sex, right? Sexual activity. You can ask the parents to walk out the door, stay outside, and then just sit there and be non-judgmental. I mean, you're going to hear things that are just going to say, what? But try to be calm and try not to make a reaction to them. I mean, you can always say you shouldn't do it, and or if you have to, or you're going to, talk about some sort of protection for them. You know, Talking about some of these adolescents, they're homosexual, and it's hard for them to tell their parents. Again, let them know this is normal, and sometimes just the experimentation with the other sex. This is normal, and these things, as a nurse, we need to say that. Adolescence is hard for them. They're trying to grow up. They're trying to break away from parents. At the end, they're going to wait to college or they're moving out of the house with their friends, right? This is part of the way these children grow up. Sometimes you're going to see children doing things that, with risky behaviors, like this spending time on the computer and looking at sex sites. You know how easy that is, right? And you know that it's something that you need to be aware of. You always check the histories of the computers, right? Important thing that you do. And nutrition, you're thinking, well, nutrition, that's infants, right? Well, what did I tell you? They have a 25% growth spurt at the beginning of adolescence. They need as much nutrition as the infants do. And, adolescents grab a bar, a power bar, and a bottle of water, and they run out of the house. And they don't eat all day long because they're so busy. So they're going to have low levels of calcium, iron, B12, and this can make them not feel as active, right? So they do need good nutrition, and they do need to be aware of that. So teaching them is very important, especially if you're in sports. You need to have those calories to be able to do well. And then teaching them about those anabolic steroids. Young men want to get into college to get scholarships in football and basketball, baseball, and they some do. Not a lot, but they're there to let them know that it can affect their growth, and in the long run could affect even more in the heart valves, et cetera, et cetera. Some kids don't like to bathe, some kids do. Some kids don't like to brush their teeth, they should. And we know girls like to put their bikinis on, go outside and get tan because they think they look good with a tan. They need to be aware that they need to use sunscreen. And then safety. Motor vehicles, now they're driving them, okay? Now, and they could be driving them and other kids are hanging off the cars, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm telling you, it causes a lot of accidents. So teaching them, that's why we have, teach you how to do drive your car in school. They need to know water safety. If they don't know how to swim, they need to know how to be safe. They need to know safety, appropriate gears for when they're going to be doing whatever. If they're running, they need good running shoes, right? And then we know there are eating disorders, anorexia and bulimia. Anorexia, you don't eat anything and you exercise, 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 and you're afraid of gaining any calories. And bulimia is eat, purge eating, like you eat the whole house and you vomit it. Now, when would you know which is what? Well, with bulimia, you're vomiting. So you're vomiting stomach acid, right? The teeth could be black and rotting, and that could be a clue. It can cause the absence of menstruation, and again, bone health is decreased there. Drug use, kids like to experiment and, peer pressure. Today we have all of these dare to keep kids off drug program at school age, but they're going to be taught, they are going to experiment. It's what they do, whether it's cigarettes. But the education is what they should be done. And, if we're seeing a kid is having a problem with abuse, again, they should be referred and get the help that they need. As I said, depression is a big thing, and this could be that change in behavior. That could be the A kid getting C's now. And again, any threat of I'm going to kill myself, take it seriously. It is going to happen. Or if you say, my friend said, that friend needs that intervention. Don't ever let that go past your ears, because they will, more than you really would realize. So the school nurse could recognize it, get that communication, have those hotlines that they could talk to somebody, or at least getting them into the office and get them a referral somewhere. Pregnancy is a big thing that happens. I had one girl in my high school class many, many years ago who over Christmas break had her baby. And I know how people looked at her. And that was a big thing back then. Today they do have programs for those teenage children having babies. Remember, they do need good health. They do need good nutrition. And they need to know what's going to happen during the pregnancy. So nursing, how do we approach them? Well, open that communication, put them at ease, give them that privacy as we get the parents out, and give them respect. And, teach them what they asked for in a manner that they understand. And let the parents know that this rebellion that they're going through is normal. And what they need to do is to listen to their child and make up a compromise that works for both of them. So nursing, with healthcare, we need to teach them about really everything, and it depends on, what the kid is there for you, but it goes from nutrition all the way down to money management. These kids are now young adults trying to grow up, and it's scary. So a parent tells you his 15-year-old daughter has suddenly entered a period of rebellion and is breaking all the household rules. Last night she came home an hour after curfew, no explanation, and she often becomes angry and sullen when disciplined. The parent asks the nurse why his daughter's behavior has suddenly changed and what can he do to stop it? What advice could you give? What could that be from? His buddies, right? His friends, her friends, drug use, right? Depression, all of these things. And it's something that this child needs to sit down with the parents, and maybe some counseling would be needed in order to help them. I mean, this is a typical 15-year-old, what they do, and they're going to try to break those rules. So, this is some little memes that I put up here to show you. So I'm a typical teenager. I have a messy room and I'm moody. I spend most of my time on the internet and I go to bed late, just like you said. Yes, they do. So, any questions? Hot stuff. Did I make it understandable? All right, we have a 30-question Kahoot. We can do it. Not that bad. Lots of great questions on it. A lot of them that are from here. If you have to leave by 5:30, I understand. I should be done about then, but Nobody else wants to join today? All right, about half of you, I'll go with it. Week 2 cahoots. A preschool child is asked, why do trees have leaves? Which response would be an example of animism? It's like the broom becomes the horsey, right? So which one here makes sense? So the tree has become alive. And it's to hide behind when they're scared. It's the tree that they're worried about, okay? Not about you, it's the tree. They hide behind their leaves. Cephalocaudal describes development that, y'all did really well with this question. The phallic is head, right? So when you look at that question, you know, head comes before feet. And that's the answer, proceeds from head to toe. Great. What task would be appropriate to expect of a 5-year-old child? You know, we know they need to do chores. They can set the table. They could clear the table. My little Christian has been taking the laundry out of the dryer, putting it in a basket and pushing it to where I fold it since he was 2, I think. So a 5-year-old set the table with paper plates. You still don't want the glass because they can drop it and hurt themselves. It's always safety. A father's concerned about how long his preschool age child will continue to suck his thumb. What's the best response? I remember I had one friend whose mother used to put Tabasco sauce on their thumb to try to stop them. And that's not what you do. That brought more attention to it. They actually by themselves will stop because the kids will tease them at school. The way a child grows and develops is known as part of your definitions. And that is called maturation. It's how you mature, how you grow. What should the nurse suggest is the most appropriate toy choice for a 3-year-old? Remember, 3-year-olds, you have to be careful what you give them. They don't hurt themselves. A board game, they don't know how to play it. A push-pull toys, that's a little bit small. They don't understand a fish. But that big construction set they can play with, you know, and build things is a good thing. What fear is unique to the preschool period? And I have no why that they understand this and the questions that come. It's all about bodily harm or death. It's actually the both, but they're afraid that they get stuck, that they're going to bleed out. And, you know, therefore, these are the age of all the band-aids, right? Preschooler. I think I have every superhero type of band-aid in this house. What does the Denver 2 screening test indicate? And it's they need something more, okay? So it tells you, all right, we think we have seen this and this and this. So then they put them into the therapies to say, evaluate it so we know exactly what's going on. it does indicate the growth and development, but it tells you you need to find out why that is happening. When planning an activity for a 3-year-old child, the nurse bases the plan of average attention span of how many minutes? 3-year-old child, how long can you keep them focused? And it's about 15 minutes. And if you're lucky, if you get 15 minutes, right? But in a classroom, 15 minutes is what is expected. A 4-year-old child insists he has more money than a nickel than his father has a dime. Per Piaget, why is this true? So remember that glass that's full, that's tall, and one that's short and fat. A nickel's big, right? And the dime is small. So that's what. And that's called intuition. It's saying, well, that was big and small, so it must be more money, right? The quarter, that would be the better one of all. What should the nurse keep in mind when planning to teach a class on nutrition to 4th grade students? So their logic now. And concrete means they've seen it. So if they've seen it, it's concrete. They know it is. And then they can think logically about what they've seen, okay? Abstract is your adolescents. Egocentric are younger kids, okay? What do you call a type of family that is traditional? One mother and father, and they have children? And that's nuclear. Blended is when you take 2 families, put them together, and communal is when you have a bunch of people together, like a church. A new mother states that she cannot breastfeed her baby. What would you recommend? Although we see some questions from last week, I like to do that to stimulate you, okay? So, no breast milk is always iron fortified formula. Whole milk at 1 year. An 8-year-old child has frequent nightmares and the parents are concerned. What is the nurse's best response? Absolutely normal. And remember, these children have the fear of mutilation. They're afraid of being cut and their insides falling out. So they need band-aids to put them on still. They're still got that in their brain. So it's just that fear. And that's normal. A 10-year-old girl likes school, plays the flute, and plays tennis. What do these activities help develop? These are things she does well. What do they call? That's industry. It's all about industry. Something I do well. If when I can't do it, it's the inferiority part of it. What statement by an 11-year-old child leads the nurse to determine he has moved from the mindset of egocentrism, which is all about me, mine, mine? I'm sorry I hurt your feelings because now they're not just thinking about me, they're thinking about another. This is I must do my homework. I am. It's all about I. And my dad, one person can do anything. The school nurse is preserving a tooth that was knocked out. What will the nurse be especially careful to do? So, kids are always falling down, teeth fall out, especially if it's a permanent tooth. How are you going to protect that? Because you can reinsert a tooth. So you're not going to touch that root that comes out, only the enamel part. And you put it in cold milk. Bring it to a pediatric dentist or a pediatric hospital. They can numb the area, especially their front teeth usually, and they can put it back in there and it will take, instead of getting a crown or a fake tooth inserted, right? What term is used for a baby that is up to 4 weeks old? It's called a neonate. That's the first 28 days of life. After 28 days, they're an infant to age 1. Then they're a toddler. A nurse is assessing a 13-year-old boy. Which physical change indicates that male puberty has begun? Well, girls, I said, are breast buds. What did I say happens to boys first? And that's the enlargement of testicles, okay? So first one is the breast buds girl, testicles get enlarged boys. A parent comments that her adolescent daughter seems to be daydreaming a lot. What does this behavior indicate? And what she's doing is seeing what's going on, and thinking about what she needs to do. And she's just getting ready for what's going on in her life. The nurse is planning care of an adolescent. What psychosocial task is most important for that adolescent? Psychosocial, Erickson, Eric's and adolescent. What did I tell you adolescents are all about? All about their identity, okay? We know industry is school age and initiative is your preschooler. When does the first tooth generally appear? Again, this is a little bit of last week's. I will always test you like that. Give you these things in a cahoots. Six months, your first tooth should come up. Now, does it mean all children get a tooth at 6 months? No. As I said, both my children never got teeth till 15 months, and then they got 8 of them. And that can be normal too, okay? But by the book, first tooth could come at 6 months old. And some kids do. What can the nurse suggest as a good dietary source of zinc for an adolescent who's a vegetarian? And it's nuts, believe it or not, nuts. Citrus fruits are your vitamin C. Green leafy vegetables are for iron. Nurse takes a height and weight and does vital signs on an infant. What level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is this? Now, in your first exam, you're going to see Maslow type of things. So I'm telling you how to use it. So when you're just doing vital signs, it's that physiological thing that you're looking at. So that's your physiological needs. Height and weight is nothing for safety. It's all about their physiological needs. Their heart's beating and their weight is good. At 6 months, solid food is offered. What would be the best choice? Rice cereal, because it's really the less allergenic of all the foods. This is the best one to start with because there's less chance of allergies. According to Freud, an infant that likes to suck on a pacifier a lot is in what developmental period? You know, Freud says that when you're an infant, it's all about oral, then it goes to toddler, anal, potty training, right? So oral, I self-satisfy with my mouth. What does Erickson say about toddlers? What do you know about toddlers? Think about it. Toddlers are all about me, mine, right? They're very autonomous. It's mine. So, and then it's the parents saying, oh, be careful, don't do that. You're going to hurt yourself. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. Remember that. Toddlers, they want to do what they want, and it's mine. And they don't know how to share at this age. An infant that sticks their tongue out when you try solid foods, this is called what? They just, nah, nah. They don't know how to take it in because they're used to just sucking, right? What reflex is that called? And it's protrusion. Ugh. That's when the tongue comes out like that. Really good. Last question. A girl tells the nurse, I love Katy Perry. I want to be a singer. This statement is typical of which stage? And that's the early part of your adolescence. You know, that's when you say, all right, or I want to be a singer. And then the reality comes in and say, well, maybe I need to go be a nurse, right? That is part of that. Here we go. Let's see how we did today. Tink, number 3, good job. Number 2, Sibby, good job, Sibby. Number 1, do-do-do-do. Millie, good job, Millie. 4, Tia and Takia. Good job, guys. So this is the end of class for today. I will be doing, as I said, I will be doing your dosage calc at 6:30. Come back to the same Zoom if you can. Again, if you can't come, I will be giving the recording. I'll be putting that up for you. Any questions from anybody?
Professor, I would like to see you after class if that's okay when everybody logs off.
Sure.